Oh boy, we're getting to the forms of the Black Sheep and the forms of the Pac-Man World trilogy of games, aren't we? Hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Mexi here, and I'm from the likes of the Mexi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, that we are about to be hit on to the conclusion to the forms of the Pac-Man World trilogy of games. This time we'll hit on to Pac-Man World 3. This game first came out in 2005, and this game was meant to be celebrated when it comes to the 25th anniversary of the Pac-Man franchise. So this might actually be the most controversial games in terms of the Pac-Man World games. Because of this though, yeah, this game also came out on the forms of 2005 as I said, and this game was released on the Nintendo GameCube, PlayStation 2, Xbox, PC and everything, much like in Pac-Man World 2. However, this time this game also came out on the PlayStation Portable, meaning you can play the game on the go, and the Nintendo DS version, which, suffice to say, the DS version is considered to be the worst version of the game due to glitches and also ugly visuals and all that stuff. So, but either way though, as you can tell on this version of the game I'm playing, is of course the PlayStation 2 version, because as far as I can tell, I managed able to get this game for quite cheap, so as a result, this is the version I can get. So, but either way though, yeah, let's get this thing started. Even though this game is often considered to be the black sheep of the series when it comes to the Pac-Man World trilogy of games, mainly it's because, well, we'll point it out whenever we're able to get the game started by, managed to able to load the game, but usually, relatively speaking, this is my first time playing the game, so I was gonna wait until whenever I picked it up and then just try to play it, but since then we've already completed Pac-Man World 1 ever since in 2019, and we've completed Pac-Man World 2 in last year in 2020, but here we are in 2021 where it comes to Pac-Man World 3. And of course I'm going to be set the actual screen resolution to widescreen support, despite this is on component, so as a result it should make things a little bit more interesting to say the least. So anyways, let's get into the actual new game here, right here. And yeah, I'm very curious to see how this game plays out to be. Well, I've heard about several things about the game, like this is not as good as the forms of the other two games, but I can understand why. But either way, we have a choice between two different difficulties, but let's go for normal mode because easy mode is for casual players, but I'm going to go for hardcore as in normal mode, just because if you ever played Pac-Man World 1 and Pac-Man World 2 before already, you probably know what to expect, but except the actual gameplay style is a lot different than the other two games. So, anyways, let's dive right into the forms of Pac-Man World 3 for multiple platforms. So, either way though, but before we get into the actual main action though, we got ourselves a cinematic cutscene.
Junior! 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 Junior, you didn't happen to see the... Oh, thanks, Snooky. Happen to see any sign of the birthday boy?
Did someone say cake? Cherry meringue sugar stuffed power pellet a l'orange? You shouldn't have.
Well, you only turned 25 once.
It just sounds so old.
Aw, sweetie, you're only as 25 as you feel.
Thanks, honey. You and Junior are the best presents I ever had. And you're right. I look fantastic.
Is something wrong?
Honey, my pack sense is tingling.
Pack, get down from there. You're not 24 anymore, you know.
But I'm not doing anything!
So, work with me, you spark-showering excuse from microcircuitry.
Okay, honey, it was funny once.
Don't panic! Everything's under control. I don't think it'll happen.
Well, at least this birthday's still better than my 20th.
Happy birthday, dear.
So yeah, much like in Pac-Man World 1, we start the game off by celebrating Pac-Man's birthday, except rather than becoming 20, it was now 25, so that's to be expected.
Pac-Man, can you hear me? Outpost calling Yellow Fella. Repeat, can you hear me?
My spectrometer. Who's there?
Pac-Man!
The signal's bad here. Some idiot teleported me into a pit.
Is that clear? You shouldn't rush to judgments, Pac-Man. Teleportation is not so easy.
Orson? Is that you? Are you by any chance the idiot of whom we speak?
I had pinpoint control of the porter until you squirmed. I would port you again, but I can't lock on. Where are you?
I'm in some sort of landfill pit. There's green goo, some trash-looking junk, and it smells really bad in here. Really?
Oh, you're down there. Ew. Rather you than me. Make your way upwards. I'll try to think of some way to help.
What about the monsters? There's usually monsters at times like this.
Alright, so now jumping right into the actual gameplay in terms of Pac-Man World 3, and as you can tell, that it's very different than the other two games. Although you might still able to do some platforming every once in a while, but the actual main emphasis on this game this time around is that, well, first of all, we're going to be able to start the game off as in tutorials, by the way, to get used to with the actual main mechanics of the game. In addition to that, we're now able to actually introduce into ourselves combat. Yeah, combat, right? In fact, that game actually reminds me of, well, we'll get to more about it until whenever we continue exploring for the game. So as you can see, that's, well, as you can tell, we're now able to actually introduce to combat mode, meaning about the fact that there are some, plenty of monsters that you have to beat the crap out of them, and basically, all you have to do is how to press the circle button, or I would classify for saying the X button or something, to able to actually just, well, depending on what version you're playing, but obviously I'm pretty much used to with the PlayStation 2 controls, in terms of the Pac-Man World games, but that's how it is for me. So, yeah, you're gonna be doing this a lot, by the way, which in order to progress, that means about the fact that we need to beat a lot of, well, enemies, I suppose, by simply able to actually either punch, which actually has some bit of a short range, and also butt bounce, which, yes, similar to the forms of Pac-Man World 1 and Pac-Man World 2, some of these Pac-Man's movesets are very similar to one another, except the fact that there are some ups and there are some downsides. Meaning about the fact that, well, obviously you can still jump as always, but the butt bouncing system, well, unlike the other two games that you can able to do the ridiculous amount of butt bouncing all the time, meaning that you can able to actually do whatever you want. However, in this game this time around, if you do the butt bounce 3 times, basically Pac-Man can able to create a bit of a shockwave, meaning about the fact that it will be useful in certain combat maneuvers. But as far as Referral is concerned, ever since the one that started it all, which is of course Pac-Man World 1 and Pac-Man World 2, that it was super useful if you really want to get yourselves a bit of an extra speed. Even especially noticeable if you come towards the ramps, then that way it allows you to able to actually go to the next portion of the level. However, in Pac-Man World 3, it will no longer going to be able to take you into the forms of some sort of a fast speed. Although it will do in some sections. However, though, it is kind of awkward, honestly, in this game. Especially because, although you can now able to jump with the forms of Referral, which is actually kind of a cool thing if you really want to able to get yourself going. However, the biggest disappointing thing for me, though, is that if you're expecting to able to do some sort of like a, well, if you're trying to speed run for this most of your time, well, unfortunately, though, is the fact that you can no longer try to able to take off into the forms of that ramps. So, yeah, that might be seems a bit offsetting at that point. So, and health witches do make a return ever since in the previous 2 Pac-Man World games, like every time you get hit by certain enemies or certain hazards, and if you manage to able to like, well, much like the forms of the previous 2 games, basically, I think you got about 4 hits of your health, and then once all of your full health is being depleted, you lose a life. Which reminds me, this game is actually an open world game, to my surprise though anyway, because this was a different take to the Pac-Man World games basically. So because of this though, rather than just going on the leniency, unlike the forms of how it does it on both Pac-Man World 1 and Pac-Man World 2. Although, again, there are still some platforming here and there, which is always an alright choice for my liking. But you're still able to collect fruits, and you're still able to collect certain collectibles like 1-ups and as well as health wages, which actually gives you a bit of health if you managed able to collect one of them. So, yeah, if you're familiar with Pac-Man World 1 and Pac-Man World 2, you might be familiar with this as well, except, well, it's been bogged down to the forms of, well, I don't mind the exploration because it feels completely different to the forms of the previous 2 games. For combat maneuvering, well, it's entirely different story, because even then, now we'll come across into that if we managed able to come across into some tougher enemy variations, so yeah, you probably get the idea about how this is going. And of course, the actual scoring system does make a return from the previous 2 games. And there's also some new collectibles to the lineup, such as, of course, as you can see on screen, I recently managed to collect 2 of those 25th anniversary Pac-Man statues. And what these are used for is that this allows you to able to actually unlock something in, I would say, in the museum mode, or extras menu, if to be more precise. And, well, I'll show more about that once we get into the extra video, much like the forms of how it does it. Well, I don't usually show off that much extra stuff in terms of Pac-Man World 1 or Pac-Man World 2 even. So, I might be curious if I was going to able to show you guys a little bit of it, but either way though, much like the previous 2 games, I will try my best if I was going to able to try to 100% for everything, basically, so anyway, so, and there's also some save spots, which you can able to actually just to, well, save your game at any point in some save spots, or alternatively, you can able to complete the level and then you save the game, so yeah, that's how it goes basically. So, and there's also one thing that's worth noting for is the fact that, well, it might be seems kind of weird to able to say things like that, because either way though, it has been quite a few days since I actually did manage to... Oh, no! The wall jump screwed up right there. Oh, and by the way, Pac-Man can now able to wall jump in this game this time around, so yeah, that's something's worth knowing for, so... And by doing that, it's by simply you have to press the circle button if you manage to hook into a wall or anything. You know, it kind of reminds me of a Mario game, except, well, this game is more accurately, to be more specifically to me, it's like a prequel to the worst Wii U game ever made, which is of course Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, because the reason why I say this is because, well, first of all, one thing I should probably point out right away is that the music in this game is very, very forgettable. Like, nowhere near as memorable as the first game or the second game, so I can understand why that most people think they don't like this game as much as the other 2. So, yeah, I totally understand why. But either way, though, there's nothing we can do in here apart from the fact that we do need to activate certain switches in order to progress, so... Although at least the game runs smoothly, like 60 frames per second and everything, almost unlike Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, just managed to like dips it to 30 frames per second, which, yeah, and there's also quite a few frame rate drops here and there, even though unfortunately for my capture footage of Pac-Man World 3, it's usually still locked in 30 frames per second, which is alright I suppose, but at least it still runs very well, unlike Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, that stupid... I'm sorry, I just really hate that game. But I digress. So, yeah, you probably get the idea of how this game plays out to be, even though sometimes there are some camera problems every once in a while, which it can be a bit present during the course of, well, specifically in terms of the forms of the later portion of the game. So, yeah, there might be a few times where the camera might actually screw you up sometimes, even though it's always automatic sometimes. Well, you can set this manually, but sometimes the camera always focuses on the forms of certain stimulations like such. So either way though, even though this game came out the same year as when, well, I would say since in 2005 as I said, but it also came out the same year as when, well, this very terrible Chicken Little film, which is usually the first ever CGI Disney movie without any Pixar support, and it's pretty bad. It is really, really bad. Although, to be fair, it does have a cameo appearance as a summon, magic, you know, the summon character from the likes of Kingdom Hearts 2, but that's all I can usually give that credit for. But apart from that, yeah, screw Chicken Little, because it's one of the worst films ever. And it's also around the same time as when Shadow the Hedgehog came around on the GameCube and PlayStation 2 and Xbox. So, either way though, to be expected by that point. And also, this game came out the same year as when Mario Kart DS came around, and also Mario Party 7, and even Super Mario Strikers, aka Mario Smash Football if you lived in Europe. And because usually most different countries usually set the same different titles and stuff, some stuff like that. So, yeah, you probably get the idea about that. I'm guessing in each and every single world in Pac-Man World 3 does manage to retain 5 25th anniversary Pac-Man statues, I'm pretty sure. Even though, no, mind you, that this is actually my, some sort of like a semi-blind playthrough of the game, mind you. So, yeah, I might try to able to get used to this. So, but for I can tell already, I think this game might actually be a bit more timeable than the Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric was. Well, at least as far as to me anyway. So, anyways though, so let's go ahead and try to fall off into the actual certain sections, so that way we can able to pull off a some sort of... What? You can't do that? Ah, great. I have to take a long route, aren't I? Yeah, the annoying thing about this is that if you think you're trying to able to go for a lot of emphasis on exploration, and most of the time that if you really want to make things a bit quicker, unfortunately though, there are a few segments from time to time where you can't able to actually rev-roll and just try to able to go ahead and trying to skip a whole ton of exploration there. So yeah, that's a bit of a problem. Although, unfortunately though, unlike in Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, that you get like infinite lives and all that stuff, whilst in here it does have lives. So this meaning about the fact that again, if you wasted about 4 wedges of your health, basically that you lose a life. And if you lose a life, it's game over. So because of that though, well, you're gonna have to be sure you need to be very cautious with certain segments worth noting for. So, but you know, you get the idea of how this game plays out to be. It is basically a prequel to that terrible Wii U game, which I think I already said this well enough, so anyways, today's day is of course the 2nd of July today, in this case in 2021, and still we're on the halfway point in terms of 2021, as far as what some Toys R's already mentioned about, ever since in their Let's Play of Klonoa Empire of Dreams yesterday. So because of that though, you can check it out if you can. So, either way though, you probably get the idea about that, so... And here's where we actually come across into ourselves this little weird portal looking thing, and that's what appears to be by the forms of... I would say by the forms of a spectral portal, which meaning about the fact that they send us spectral monsters, as you can see. And just like in Pac-Man World 1 and Pac-Man World 2, you can able to actually deal with them by simply collect the actual power pellet, and basically that deals the actual, you know, the forms of the spectral monsters and all that stuff, so that should be a little bit more pleasant, or anything else like that, despite the actual environment of this game. It actually kind of feels a bit uninspired compared to the forms of how it does in the previous 2 Pac-Man World games, because they have like a lot more colorful environments, at least in Pac-Man World 1 and Pac-Man World 2, whilst in here, the visuals kind of feels a bit dull looking. But that's as far as I can usually describe about the forms of the worlds themselves. Oh, and by the way, this is the first world of the game, by the way, and I think this is usually calls it, Bot Graveyard. I think that's what the actual world itself is named. So, at least as far as I was guessing it wrong. I think it's Boneyard. I think that's what the actual world itself is called anyway. I was literally that close. Because I keep on thinking about the forms of, well, let's just say the actual mansion world from Pac-Man World 1, or even the forms of the actual final world in Pac-Man World 2, but close enough.
The spectral realm?
Oh, and by the way, this game does have full-fledged voice acting, so most people seem to found it a bit, well, bad. Well, most notably because the voice acting in this game is like, well, hit and miss. Like, I can't even believe Pac-Man has actually had a voice acting, which as a result, he doesn't speak that much in Pac-Man World 1 or Pac-Man World 2, which is fun enough for me, but as far as this game is concerned, it's horrifically bad. I just have no idea why they just do this. Although, to be fair, to try to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Pac-Man games ever since in 2005, but then later on in 2010, they'll celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Pac-Man series by the forms of Pac-Man Party? Which is, of course, as you probably already know ever since in our Let's Play of Pac-Man Party, but either way. Oh, and there's also another collectible, such as these little collectible cards, which, I might as well show that off a bit whenever we get into the extra video or something, but again, we've only just barely got started with this, so to, you know, get used to with the actual gameplay style and all that stuff, despite, you know, this is a prequel to Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, of course, except, well, they just managed to rip it off, so anyway, certain Galaxians do make a return ever since in Pac-Man World 1 and Pac-Man World 2, even though it functions the same thing as Pac-Man World 2, is that if you're able to touch the Galaxian, it'll take you to the actual maze. And just like in Pac-Man World 2 and Pac-Man World 1, the name of the game on this Galaxian segments is pretty similar, so you have to grab all of these Pac dots and then you will soon enough complete the actual maze. And it functions the same way as the forms of Pac-Man World 2, where basically you do have 3 units of lives. So because of that, if you dare touch the ghost, then you'll lose a life. However though, if you do manage to lose all of your lives, then I'm pretty sure it actually kicks you out. You know, kind of like how it did in the forms of Pac-Man World 2, basically. So, yeah, that's something worth knowing for anyway, so. And there's also some power pellets that you're pretty much used to at this point, so either way though, just able to distract those ghosts, and then you can able to eat the ghosts while at it. So either way though, there's not much right to say about this for the most part, aside from the fact that, well, usually as far as I can tell, I'm pretty sure that you can't control the camera of this time around, whilst unlike in Pac-Man World 1, and Pac-Man World 2, you can able to actually set into a few different camera angles and all that stuff to make the actual view perspective a little bit easier for you. But either way, that's how it goes basically, so. And also, much like the forms of Pac-Man World 1, I'm pretty sure that's what I was thinking of anyway, is that there are a few of those referral segments that you can able to actually just to go, and same applies to Pac-Man World 2 as well, that there are a few referral segments that you might able to get used to, like puzzle solving, as well as, well, any possibilities that you can think of, so. Oh wow, I'm actually getting 7 lives already. Seriously, there's so many ways you can able to grab quite a few extra lives, except the fact that, well, usually unlike Pac-Man World 1, there are no bonus levels to be found if you finish the level, or if you manage to take on the forms of the slot machines, basically. So because of that, much like in Pac-Man World 2, there are some good chances that you might able to get quite a few extra lives worth noting for, so. And I think that's pretty much about it in terms of the first world in the game, which is of course, you know, Boneyard, as what the name of the world suggests. So, every time when you get the high score, likely as you can see I got first place, basically you have to insert your 3-letter cap right there. So because of that, I'm just gonna able to call, well, despite I'm Maxi, but either way though, I'm just gonna put Max for short. But anyway, let's save our progress here, and well, we are basically done with the first world, so yeah, the first world is pretty easy when you get used to with the actual main mechanics of the game, but even though some of these worlds might go a bit longer due to the forms of exploration, so, you know.
Orson, I thought you were going to teleport.
I can't calibrate, Pac-Man. Atmospheric, interference from the, radiation. Oh, just keep following the path. I'm not far away at all.
So yeah, anyway, I think we should probably end things off here. So join me next time on Let's Play Pac-Man World 3. It's now we are moving on to the second world in the game. So I'll see you guys until on Monday. Later, fellas.